This is Beyond the Sidelines with Ethan Schmidt and George Belecki, only on 4stateshomepage.com.
Well, welcome into Week 11 of Beyond the Sidelines. I'm Ethan Schmidt. He's George Belecki. Normally, we start the show off with our Game of the Week recap, but we're going to get through this because we're in playoff mode, so we have to be in our own 2-minute drill, if you will, when it comes to playoff modes because there's so many teams to get to. So we're going to start off talking about Class 6, District 3, Joplin, a 77-13 victory over Kickapoo. And they now await Lindbergh, and they'll get to host a second game. So a lot of history being made for Joplin on Friday night. And
you talk about us being a 2-minute drill. That's what the Joplin offense looked like all night long. Jumped out to a 21-0 lead before Kickapoo can even get an offensive snap in. Then block punts, 35-0 just like that. James Boyd getting in on those plays. I was looking at what Joplin's strength, and it's been all season long, how well the offense has been running. But if you went to the game Friday night, you saw 56 points in the first quarter. Isaiah Davis getting involved, Zach Staten, Blake Tash, Zach Westmoreland, all the names you want to hear coming through. Defensively getting it done as well. It comes against a really low Kickapoo opponent that rolled in with 2 wins. But for Joplin, they didn't come out flat at all. They didn't come out and wait for Kickapoo to hit them first before they hit back. Right away, their foot on Kickapoo's throat, held it down, and kept going at him. Hung up 77 in the first half. I've never seen a game like that before in high school, but they're clicking, and it's the right time of year. You mentioned the history they had. They were looking for it, and I was joking around Blake Tash and Zach Westmoreland before the game. They were looking to play in a Week 11 game for the first time since 1993.
Right.
Those guys are saying how young they've been, since the last time Joplin even won a district game in the old Missouri format. I looked at that and said, guys, I was born in 94. So last time y'all have played in a Week 11 game, I wasn't even born. They looked at me and started giving me old jokes. I didn't appreciate that.
Well, they weren't even born yet, obviously, because they were 2000s babies, so they haven't even seen anybody get there. We talked a little bit beforehand. I brought up the video that we shared from Shane Munn, who played on that 95 team against Kickapoo, the game-winning field goal as time expired that bounced off the upright and in for Kickapoo. So there's a lot of animosity between those two teams as well, the former Ozark Conference foes. And, I know a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't have put up 77 points, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. Kickapoo has done that in the past to this Joplin program. So yeah. I think it's just one of those things for Joplin. It was a statement win for them that, hey, for weeks people said our defense can't do it. We can't come together on offense. Our special teams is there. They dominate in all 3 phases of the football game. And I don't care what anybody says. You can ask any coach at any level, what do you want to do? And it's dominated all 3 phases. You could ask Nick Saban then. If he saw a 77 victory, we know Alabama puts those points up on people all the time. So when you look at someone like that, when you look at some of these head coaches, as long as your team's dominating in all 3 phases and your backups are dominating in all 3 phases, that's what you come out to coach for. That's what you do when you step on the field.
And what Joplin was executing is what we've seen come from other schools. Up 14-0, they go with the surprise onside kick, and that's what gets them another score on the board. And they went with that early. But then it got to the point, because what got them 35-zip was next 2 defensive stops, Kickapoo went to punt. They couldn't even field a punt.
Right.
There came a point for Joplin where the only thing that was stopping that offense from moving forward was the end zone. So that's a 2-way street. If anyone wants to say, and I saw it online, and Curtis Jasper, what he's done with Joplin has been amazing since his tenure. Football aside, he's all class as a leader. He makes these young men, and he grooves them to be better when they leave the program than when they walked in. Running up the score is not in his pedigree. They don't do that. The backups got in. The backups were scoring themselves. Pick sixes, rushing touchdowns as well. There was to a point where Joplin was just that good, and Kickapoo on the low year was just that bad. But you mentioned it, how long this rivalry went back. I mean, that's an old Ozark Conference foe.
Right.
They came in through from Springfield, and they had that big test. Joplin answered the bell, and they made history happen. You mentioned that Lindbergh team that's going to come in. Now, they got to make this 4.5-hour drive all the way from St. Louis. They're a team that comes in with 3 losses. Those 3 losses coming from opponents with a record of 24-6, one of those being the top seed in the district in Eureka. And they come with a much different look. They have a triple option offense look, and in their opening district win, they only completed 2 passes. That tells you all you need to know about their offense. To me, this is the test that I really was looking for Joplin to prove to me, like you mentioned, people doubting their defense, is their defense capable of carrying them through the playoffs?
Right.
Because that's an offense that will eat up the clock. They're led by senior quarterback and Wyatt Critchlow. He's, a big guy, 4.7 speed 40, decisive in his read options, and their running back as well, and Bobby Tesler, same size Isaiah Davis, just runs downhill. If they can stop that run game, turn to their secondary with Deron Morgan and Zach Westmoreland, contain them through the passing game, and continue to have the offense click. We talked about how opportunistic they were on Friday night. For Joplin, it's going to be the same thing. They have to force Lindbergh into a few punts. They need to get those stops defensively for themselves. And for their offense, every time out, they got to score. But this is going to be an offense. Eats up a lot of the clock. When that high pedigree offense is on the sideline for Joplin, can their defense get it done? That'll be a key for them in the game.
Absolutely, I agree with you there. Lindbergh, they get the 42-13 win over Cedar Hill. That's going to be our game next week that we'll look at there in Class 6. In Class 5, District 6, well, Carthage, they got a bye week. And I saw a great tweet from the athletic director out there. He said, hey, guys, you know what? No, David Hafner's not going to be rocking tonight, but they better be next week when they welcome in Republic. Republic beat Branson 34-9. The last time these two teams met, it was on October 12th, and it was actually Carthage getting the win over Republic 42-26. You were going to say it, I'm going to say it. I don't see Republic slowing down Carthage at all.
You read my mind.
Yeah.
To the point, and but this is a better Carthage team than they were in that Republic game. If Repmo gets another 27, I'll be surprised. If Carthage has just 42, I'll be surprised. I said it to you beforehand. I just think that this district, there's a reason Carthage has won it so many times in a row. Geographically, these teams are cursed that they run into the Tigers every year at this time of year to never really even sniff the state tournament as far as football goes. But for Carthage, they should continue to walk through this district. I'm excited to see them back in action. All the great games we had, I looked around and said, you know what, I missed that Carthage is playing tonight. But they are well-deserved to bye, come out healthy of this game. That's a key for them.
Absolutely. Class 4, District 6 now. Webb City, the 55-13 win over McDonald County. They're going to host number 4, Carl Junction, who beat Hillcrest 43-12. So we're going to see that rematch from week 1, that 42-9 victory by Webb City. At one point it was close. There was a few interceptions by Cade Beeson, but it all was Webb City towards the end of that game. So we're going to see a rematch of that. What does Carl Junction have to do to try and slow down Webb City, and what are you expecting to see from Webb?
I don't expect much for Carl to be able to do, and I expect from Webb, as you look, what has been Carl's click late in the year, that improved defense. But for Webb City, they've just improved in all facets of the game. At quarterback, at running back, at defense, in special teams as well, in their field goal kicking. And a big part in that, what I love is the past 2 weeks, what we saw from the Webb City backfield. Devin Weathers getting his 2 weeks ago on just, I think, 6 touches. Well, Durand Henderson this past Friday night, 8 carries, 151 yards, 3 touchdowns. Those two are walking first downs. Cade Beeson's a walking first down. Alex Gaskell catching a fade route on a touchdown too. It's just another year. This is a Webb City team. And TK,
there's another weapon there.
Since his big night, we're still waiting for him to appear again, but he gets it done on the defensive side. And that's a part. So for Carl, I mean, it'll be like when we're comparing Nevada and the Lamar matchup, it's just they need to bring the A++++ game, and Lightning's going to have to strike right a lot of times. I just don't see it in this Carl team. And to, you know, kind of summarize the year that has been for CJ, these two teams are meeting in the semifinal instead of the final. Those are only the 1-2 seed. And it feels weird. Of course, they're always going to run into each other in this district tournament. It just feels weird they're not seeing each other in that championship game. But I expect Webb to come out on top on this one.
Also in that same district, our game of the week, Neosho with a big win over Monette, 49-20. Neosho came out, and what I told you on Friday that I thought was the biggest portion for them was that their offense finally woke up, and we saw those running games. Donnie Fox had over 100 yards. Carries. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He paced the run game there. Gage Kelly had about 88 yards and a touchdown as well. And Cade Lyerla also had 2 touchdowns on the ground. So there's a lot of great running attacks that were going on. Now where they got burnt, Carter Brink had over 250 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns in that game. So you see where the defense, you know, normally really good against the pass, but Carter Brink is exposed a little bit.
Go back to that Joplin game with Neosho, 20-6 final, scoreless at half. Their corners are big, they're physical, they can tackle. But they expected Joplin to come out and throw the ball. I don't think anybody expected Monette to come out and throw the ball, and that's what they did. They played uncharacteristic. They did what they had to do to make it competitive in the districts, but that's what they did. They caught that Neosho defense off guard. I expect them to bounce back. Now they have Marshfield coming into town, and Marshfield's on a historical run themselves. First time they hosted a playoff game since 2003. They beat and they won against Bolivar. This is the first time they've had 8 wins since 1999. But this comes with a Class 4 school playing a Class 3 schedule in the Big 8 East. They don't have the tests that Neosho has had in the COC, and I think Neosho gets it again against Marshfield.
Neosho will look for a second win against a Big 8 school in this next week. Let's move on to Class 3 District 6. Cassville, they beat Clinton 49-6. They're going to host Seneca, the 4 seed, and Seneca very impressive in their game against Hollister, 43-7. Seneca, it's going to be as you said, a lot of lightning striking right for Seneca, but they have the talent to do it, but Cassville's just so dominant on all sides of the ball.
Yeah, the problem is Seneca has the talent on the offensive side of the ball. Right. I don't see it on the defensive side. If they can't stop that quarterback ISO led by Shannon Haney that was gashing that Lamar defense, if they can't contain Anthony Tolbert, Bowen Peretti, I'll go on with the names. I just don't see it happening for them. Cassville is a fine-tuned machine, and what I've been telling everyone, and obviously what made them for real was that big 8 West championship game over Lamar, is that the guys they have, these names I'm naming, they've been playing since they're juniors, since they're sophomores. Shannon Haney and Zach Burton, since midway through their freshman year, they've been starters for this squad. All that experience, timing together with all of them sticking together, it's a payoff now. And that's in the best team in Coach Parnell's 5-year tenure in Cassville. They're going to continue to roll through Seneca, I believe.
On the other side of that bracket, Mount Vernon, a 12-0 victory over Aurora. Will Boswell, though, a great running performance for Will. 22 carries, 128 yards. He scored both their touchdowns. Again, no kicking game, and that doesn't set up well because they're going to take Reed Springs on the road. Last time those teams faced off, it was 27-26 final. That was on September 14th. It was Reed Springs coming out victorious. What do you think Mount Vernon has to do this time? Find a kicker?
Yeah, I think that's essentially it. But I think just keep rolling with Will Boswell, run the ball there. The Reed Springs game for Mount Vernon, this is big because they could have had home field in this game if they won that game. But, of course, Reed Springs owned the flip in the district seeding, how it goes in Missouri. This means a lot to Mount Vernon. They want to match up with Cassville. They want to meet Cassville in the championship game, and Reed Springs stands between them in that one. All the seniors, all the upperclassmen they have, along with the athletes on the outside, they have basketball players that are wide receivers, leading them in receiving. They have balance everywhere on the offensive side. I think that's going to be key for them against Reed Springs. But I think just how much this game means for them, Mount Vernon know what it's like to step up and rise to the occasion.
Right.
They've exceeded expectations since week 1. They're going to continue to do so this upcoming Friday night in week 11.
Got Class 2 District 4 now. Lamar, the big win over Stockton. We all kind of thought that was going to come anyway. 63-6 the final. Sarcoxy gets the win against Butler, 39-7. And we talked about this when the reclassifications happened. Sarcoxy woke up one morning in Class 1, and then the next morning they woke up. They were in Class 2 in the same district with Lamar. Now those two teams will face off this Friday.
I know, it's just a cursing and a blessing, I guess, same time. You want to go up, compete at the higher classes, and, continue to improve the program. That's what you have to do. But cursed, as I always say, a lot of these teams geographically by where they're at, they run into Lamar. And I love it because as much hype as Joplin was getting that 77-13 win, well, like you mentioned, Lamar's final score 63-6. That's a norm for Lamar putting up those points. So they've done it so many times. And I said it on air, I thought Joplin scored the most points historically in a quarter in Missouri high school football history, 56 points. Ethan, you called me out on it. You said, if you think a record is set, it's not. Lamar already owns it.
They own it.
They scored 57 in 2011. But this offense continues to roll. And they've been playing, they're playing ticked off. They were coming into this district tournament. I feel bad for the whole field in that district right there, Ethan.
Absolutely. Let's go Class 1, District 2 and 3. We'll kind of get through these. Pierce City, 68-0 over Pleasant Hope. We didn't even really get through the highlights on Friday because I said Pierce City, they rolled through Pleasant Hope, which they did for the second straight week. But the big matchup in this one, now they take on Thayer. 14-7, they beat Kabul. Last year, Thayer shut out Pierce City in the district championship game. So there's a little bit of revenge on I think, Pierce City on their hearts right now, on their minds, because, we had the twin Clybakers last year, and now we have Jackson Clybaker. He remembers what his brothers went through, and I think that whole team just wants to come together and get
Trey
this win.
Sagehorn was in that game, too. Colton O'Hara was in that game, too. These guys remember, big part in that. Thayer has to make the drive over to Pierce City, a 2-hour-plus bus ride. Can they play on the road? We know Pierce City can. They did it 5 games in a row. They're still undefeated. That's why I really like the Eagles' opportunity they have here in front of them.
I agree with you on that one. Miller, they also get the win, 35-6 over Marionville. They will face Skyline. Lockwood, the win over Diamond, so back-to-back weeks for them. They're going to take on Adrian. Adrian beat Rich Hill 42-6. Liberal, though, the huge upset here in our classes, at least with local teams, was Liberal beating Jasper 52-27. The last time these two teams faced each other, Jasper won by 40. That was back in week 3. Now, Liberal will have to face Greenfield, and the last time that these two teams faced each other, that was week 1. Greenfield only won 22-8. The stat from this, though, is Colby Selvey, 295 rush yards, 6 rushing touchdowns for Liberal in this victory. Liberal, they got hot at the right time, it looks like.
And what always grabbed our eyes about Jasper is Mason Hatfield, how he ran the ball. Well, there you go. Liberal comes out and they snatch that glamour from them. And this is their 4th win in a row, I believe. So they're the team that's rolling. A big cliche here in the playoffs, get hot at the right time. Who's playing their best ball? come October, come November. Well, right now it's looking like liberal. I mean, I like the setup they have here. They shocked me for sure, pulling off that upset. I know they shocked you as well. Maybe they'll continue to shock us and they'll keep rolling through the district.
Let's see what happens there. Let's move into Kansas now. We start with Class 4A. A big one for Pittsburgh, 37-15 over Spring Hill, and now they'll host Bishop Miege, who beat Labette County 76-8. But if there's one team that's battle-tested and ready for this matchup in our area, it's Pittsburgh.
It is. I mean, when you go back a few weeks when they upset Blue Valley North, they know what it takes emotionally to get up to that level, defensively what they have to play up to that level. My concern with them, can they stay disciplined? They have the athletes that can make the plays. I mean, for Dylan Jordan, he's getting a lot of hype as a potential Big 12 linebacker, defensive lineman, or just athlete in general. Well, when you go up against Bishop Miege, who just churns out D1 talent, can you make plays happen against them? Can you control the tempo and control the line of scrimmage from the defensive side? I love the matchups that you get across because, to me, it's the strengths that you look to because Bishop Miege's strength is their spread offense. Pittsburgh's strength is their defense. So Jarek Butcher at linebacker, Sam Pedrati of quarterback at Bishop Miege, Bryson Cobbins at running back for Bishop Miege, and you go back to Dylan Jordan at linebacker. Their two receivers are a sophomore for Miege, a sophomore and junior, balanced, same in touchdown receptions, about 2 catches separate them, yards off by 50. Well, Dylan White and Brett Weimers will be tested out there as well. It goes back to it, but can Pittsburgh step up? And battle tested, I mean, Miege is the reigning 4A champs.
Right.
They took on Rockhurst, who's one of the best teams in 6A and Class 6 in Missouri this year, and that was for a long time happening, and that was a 1 or 2 point loss, I believe. They set up their schedule as well. There's a reason that the best team in 4A doesn't have home field tonight. That's because they took on some of the best in the upper classes in Kansas, as does Pittsburgh. Both teams battle tested. A big part in it, you got to take the upper hand. Hutchinson Field, that field has to fill out. It did for the Blue Valley North game. Has to fill out again this upcoming Friday night.
And it will be our game of the week. You see the helmet up here. We'll be at Pittsburgh for Pittsburgh Bishop Miege, so we'll be there on the sidelines ready to go for that one. Also in Class 4A, Fort Scott, they get the win. They'll go on the road to Linwood. Coffeyville, they actually will get to host again because they won their game, but they got an upset from Arkansas City over Mulvane, so we'll see Coffeyville host. Let's move in now to Class 3A. Galena, the buzzsaw continued there. They beat Anderson County 40-0. Frontenac, though, the big win on the road over Burlington 33-6. This will set up a rematch between those two teams. The last time they met, it was 47-0 in favor of Galena.
And that surprised a lot of us because we didn't expect that to happen on Frontenac's end, especially that goose egg that we saw, of course, letting up that 47 spot, but just not even being able to muster offense. And then you see the way that they bounce back when they take on a Parsons team, a 7-6 victory. So they have a defense that can boast. Tough part, Frontenac, it's not a far drive, but they got to come to Galena. The Bulldogs love their home field advantage that they have right down Route 66 from us in the studio. That's a big part for this. But Galena, I think, just again, they'll have the upper hand. Superior athletes and the superior guys at the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's what works for Bo Sarwinski all the years that he's been leading the Bulldogs. I think it'll work again this Friday night.
Also in Class 3A, one of the biggest ones that we've talked about was another Thursday night matchup. It was a classic, 6-0. Parsons beat Girard, and it was the first time since the 1970s that we saw Parsons win a playoff game. And Coach Freese was there, and he said, we've been here for all these years. We've been here for every single loss in the playoffs. It was a big moment for them. They're moving on, and they will actually get a chance to take on Prairie View, who beat Caney Valley. So Parsons, though, a huge shout out to them and that athletic unit that they bring out.
And the Prairie View team, that's a good team, comes in with one loss, that one loss coming to Galena. So they're tested as well. When Parsons played Galena, we know the outcome there, of course. The Vikings coming up shorthanded. That's a thing, too. And what showed me a lot was I was harping a lot on the athletes that Parsons brings offensively, the big playability that they have. Well, they showed us with their defense on that Thursday night. So I think it's a big part. Boosts the confidence on, you want to say, the weaker side of the ball, lack of a better term. That only helps this time of year.
In Class 1, we have St. Mary's Colgan. They beat Blue Stem 68-8. They will host Hillsboro, who won 75-20 over Yates Center. If you don't remember, earlier in the year, St. Mary's Colgan beat Yates Center 70-15, so pretty much the same scoring differential there. That game will be Friday. It's going to be at Carney Smith Stadium at 6 p.m., obviously, because Pittsburgh and St. Mary's Colgan are home. But that game will be still home field because it's going to be in Pittsburgh, but it'll be a big-time field because it's going to be on that Division II field.
Yeah, they've played in this before. I remember last year going shooting a playoff game at Carney Smith, and it has that fun feel to it because you have this gigantic stadium. Only one side of the bleachers fill up because this high school game doesn't have as big of a crowd, and so it's a lot quieter than a Pitt State game, but you just hear all the interactions of the games, everything going down, all the little things you don't notice in a regular high school or when you're at a Pittsburgh State game for Colgan. What I love is that it's the same ball we saw take them to state last year. Run the ball, Go with the wishbone triple option offense, whatever you want to call it, and then also own on defense. Will their guys like the Matthew Lomshek step up? Eddie Lomshek's son, Matty Lomshek at running back. Will he continue to step up? Cade Simmons, how well will he be playing at the quarterback position? If those guys continue to roll, that's what will help the St. Mary's rolling forward.
Absolutely. Cal Marquardt at wide receiver, Andrew Lomshak on defense. He's had probably the catch of the year. We mentioned it a few weeks ago.
Interception of the year, but came down with the ball. I agree with you.
It was still a catch. Either way, you have to look at it. He had to catch the ball physically. 8-man Division II, though. St. Paul, another team that was in state last year in Kansas, poised to make another good run. They start their run off 62-14 win over Hartford. They will now host Lost Springs, who won their game 32-28. That game will be Friday at St. Paul and also at a 6 p.m. start.
Yeah, I think that's a big part. These teams, as we see how hot they've been playing, you give that 6 p.m. start. It's a little earlier than what they normally get on a Friday night, which is a unique situation. But for St. Paul, what I love about it is that's a team that made a run to state as well last year. They know the pieces that it takes. I'll always take experience, and they lost in the state championship game. My favorite combination in the postseason is teams that have the experience and failure. They've been there before.
Right.
They know what it takes. They know why they lost or what caused them to lose, how they can fix that and step up. But they also know what it takes to get that far into the postseason.
Well, George, our 2-minute drill turned into about a 19-minute drill, but I like what we did with it. So, sometimes you just need more time on the clock to
a lot of
finish the game
timeouts,
off.
a lot of running out of bounds.
Exactly. That's what we did. A lot of check down passes that went out of bounds. But of course, don't forget, Mondays, you can always tune in to Action 12 Sports, where you'll see our top performers, where we recap the previous Fridays and see who the best athletes were in the area, the best performances. There was a lot of players that we talked about that you will see tomorrow. And of course, also on Thursday, we'll have a preview of our game of the week from Pittsburgh as we start looking at the Purple Dragons as they get ready to take on Bishop Miege. And then Friday night, that's when all the magic happens. George and I.
Most exciting night of the week.
That's right. We take on our high school game night. We look at all the games that we were at and all the scores from around the area, and we let you know what's coming up in the next few weeks as we get even further into the postseason. Oklahoma, this is their last week of the regular season. They start their postseason after this Friday, so next Friday. So we'll have more teams in the postseason that we'll get a chance to talk about and go in a little bit more in depth on. So, but for this week, for week 11 of Beyond the Sidelines, I'm Ethan Schmidt. He's George Bilecki, and you're catching this right here on 4stateshomepage.com.
This is Beyond the Sidelines with Ethan Schmidt and George Bilecki, only on 4stateshomepage.com.